It's a dark day for America. Charlie Kirk's assassination has been, it's left us all stunned, and I think many of us feel like we're living in a nightmare. This feels like a tipping point for America, and I think something has majorly shifted. And it feels as though this invisible line has been crossed in a really horrific, violent way. Our country, sadly, is no stranger to political violence, but this particularly heinous assassination has shaken a lot of people up. And I fear that we'll never be able to go back to where we were before. One of the worst parts of this assassination, and there's really nothing else to call it except a murder and an assassination, is that this violence was all caught on camera. And most of you who are watching this video have probably already seen the footage of Charlie Kirk being murdered in front of a large group of, I think, 3,000 attendees at a university in Utah. It's happened on September 10th in broad daylight. I know there are a lot of questions of how did a firearm even make its way onto campus. I don't think, unfortunately, with these large university campuses, I don't think it's exactly difficult to bring a firearm onto the premises. But here's what we know so far about the shooter, and let's get into some other stuff after this. But this is some of the information that has been coming out. So this is all being verified, but Steven Crowder is sharing an exclusive. He said, "This morning, my team received an email from an officer at ATF. The email included a screenshot from what appears to be an internal message describing a weapon and cartridges located by an ATF and other law enforcement near the scene of the Charlie Kirk shooting at Utah Valley State University." So here's the quote. "On September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:24 p.m., conservative political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at the Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Mr. Kirk was speaking at the university as part of the American Comeback Tour. Multiple SLC 1 and 3 agents responded immediately. The suspect fired one shot from an elevated position on a rooftop in an adjacent building on the campus, and surveillance video shows the suspect jumping off and fleeing the area on foot. ATF and other law enforcement located an older model imported .30-06 caliber bolt action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. The location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds at the top-fed magazine. All cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. An emergency trace has been submitted, and ATF SLC is working leads generated by the trace. The firearm and ammunition have been taken by the FBI for DNA analysis and fingerprint impressions. Upon completion of forensics, the firearm will be disassembled for additional importer information. Multiple people of interest have been contacted or detained because of eyewitness testimony and review of video footage. The primary suspect is yet to be identified. ATF is assisting the investigation with multiple other federal, state, and local partners, and the case is co-led by the FBI and Utah SBI. None of this has been officially confirmed yet, so instead of going over all of this and talking about the suspicions and this act of terrorism and where it came from, what I want to talk about today is how this assassination has felt really personal to a lot of us. Those of us who did not even know Charlie Kirk personally, and of course, to the many people in the conservative media world and the conservative politics world knew Charlie personally. Of course, this feels even more personal for them. It's hard to explain the impact that Charlie has had on American politics and culture. Even as somebody who I didn't know him personally, many of you probably didn't know him personally, but it's almost hard to put into words what an impact he had on this country over the last 10 years. And I mean that both from the political sense and the cultural sense. And those are two very distinct ways that Charlie has had a really big impact on this country. Of course, he was one of the most important figures to help Trump get reelected last year. He's been a close friend of the Trump family for many years now, but especially on the side of the culture. Charlie has been a champion of free speech, and he's been a champion of open debate. He's been an incredibly loud pro-life voice. He, of course, one of the main things that he's done over the last decade has visited many college campuses and has encouraged many young people, teenagers and young adults, to not be afraid to come forward and express their Christian conservative values. And this is what has made Charlie so lethal to the left, is that he has really touched the minds and hearts of many, many young people. I remember seeing him for the first time in 2017 in San Francisco. That's when I was living in SF. And he was one of the first influences on me that really helped me pull back the veil and see what was really happening. I remember seeing him on stage with Candace in 2017. And I actually remember attending that event almost like sneaking around behind all my friends' backs, because of course in San Francisco, everybody is incredibly leftist. I became more and more confident during my days in San Francisco to be proud of my beliefs. Largely that was due to Charlie. Charlie was one of the first people that I ever listened to. And I really listened to at that time. And of course, he introduced me to Candace. I don't mean personally, I mean ideologically. Online, he introduced me to Candace's content. And I just remember seeing Candace and being like, I would love to meet her one day. About 2 years later, I ended up working for her and helping her manage her nonprofit organization called Blexit, which is now run by TPUSA, Charlie's organization. And Charlie has been the backbone of conservative media for years. And he's been the backbone of the conservative movement for a really long time, especially when it comes to young adults. You know, over the last few years, there's definitely some things that I've disagreed with him on, and you're never going to agree with everybody on everything. But there's never been a doubt in my mind that Charlie has been one of the most influential people in this movement. And this feels particularly personal for so many of us because Charlie was a champion for conservative voices. Even if he disagreed with us, he was so clearly somebody who dedicated his life to the movement and dedicated his life to the country. The first thing that I could think of when I heard the news of the shooting and I just felt frozen. I think like many of you did. How many of you felt frozen just refreshing Twitter, refreshing the news to try to see if he made it? Did he make it to the hospital? There were a lot of accounts saying that he made it to the hospital. He still had a pulse. He was receiving blood. Who knows what happened in those minutes that followed? But we were all deeply disturbed by the footage of that shooting. Obviously, I'm not going to show it. If you haven't seen it, I don't advise you to go look at it because there are multiple angles, and the angle up close in front of him was incredibly graphic. All I could think about was his wife and his kids. His children are almost the same exact age as my kids. His son was actually born the same exact month as my son. This assassination in broad daylight, it makes us feel like we're living in some sort of previous timeline where you can be murdered for having a dissenting political opinion. We have not seen an assassination of this degree in decades. Definitely not in our lifetime at all. I don't care how much you disagreed with Charlie. I don't care how much you did not like him or didn't like his politics. You cannot deny that we have not seen an assassination to this degree in our lifetime. There is something about it that feels so heavy. Of course, it's heavy when a person is unalived, of course, but there's something about this that just feels different. It feels like we have reached a tipping point. I'm not kidding. I'm not being hyperbolic. I've thought about this a lot over the last 12 hours, last almost 24 hours at this point. I really think this assassination is going to go down in history and be remembered the same way that MLK's assassination was, JFK's. I don't think that we are ever going to come back from this and be the same. Even though I did not know Charlie personally, I, like many of you, and who have messaged me on Instagram, you know, we've been talking a lot in the DMs. I've been talking to a lot of you, and I know a lot of you feel it too. I know you feel the heaviness. I know you feel a great loss. This was and is a great loss. Not only is this a great loss, but it's an incredibly dark time in our country. I think this murder and the response to it has opened the eyes of many people who are maybe on the moderate side, somewhat in the middle, or maybe just right of center, maybe even just left of center. I think it's opened up the eyes of many people to see the responses, the demons, literal demons coming out of the woodworks, cheering Charlie's murder, dancing, celebrating, being elated at his death. And this has been, I think, the most upsetting part of this violence is the response to it. And I'm not just talking about some fringe people on the internet who are crazy and like crazy Antifa, whatever. We're seeing this response from legacy media on the news. We've already had somebody, I forgot his name, MSNBC, some guy got fired for his comments about Charlie's death. We've already seen it from Congress, C-SPAN. There's footage of politicians asking to pray for Charlie and Democrats screaming in disagreement, no, we're not going to do that. This is your fault. Booing the idea of praying for an innocent 31-year-old man who just lost his life. We're seeing this. Ilhan Omar just sat down for an interview, and she said that she essentially said that Charlie deserved this because of his beliefs on the Second Amendment, because of what he said after certain school shootings. The response to this is so deeply disturbing. And then, of course, it trickles down, seeing the response from all of these monsters on social media.
Yo, they got Charlie Kirk, bro. I've never been happier.
Never believe the reason I'm smiling. And it has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk. Nothing to do with
I would say pour one out for Kirky Boy, but I don't waste good beer on little bitches.
I haven't posted on TikTok in a long time, but I'm gonna now because rest in peace, bozo!
Charlie Kirk just got put down like a dog in Utah, and I could not be happier. Praise be.
I do not, and I will not, ever feel bad when bad people get what the they deserve.
Charlie Kirk got shot? That's awful. That's so sad. Hope he recovers well.
I just heard that someone shot Charlie Kirk? Dang it. Ah, shucks.
You guys, I could go on and on. I could show you multiple hours of the compilations of the footage, the montages of these people celebrating the murder of a 31-year-old husband and father. And it occurred to me, I forgot who said this online, but they said the idea of Charlie being a husband and a father does not appeal to these people. That doesn't even work on these people. You know why? Because these are people who hate children. They hate babies. They hate their own parents. So it doesn't matter that we try to appeal to their empathy or just their humanity by saying this is a husband and a father we're talking about. It doesn't matter to these people. And this is not, again, these responses are not fringe. They are not on the radical ends of leftism and liberalism. This is the mainstream collective response to this senseless act of violence. This is a massive turning point for our country, and I think for our movement as well. I have never ever seen, I could be wrong, you can share it with me, but I have never seen somebody on the right, somebody in the conservative movement celebrate death, murder this way of an innocent person. I've never seen this before. And I've particularly never seen it at the level of Congress. Imagine a group of Republican congressmen and women celebrating like this, saying it was his fault, whoever, say there's some, liberal political commentator who was shot and killed at a college campus event. Imagine if Republican congressmen and women responded like this. Imagine if Fox News anchors responded like this. I've never seen anything like this before because it's never happened like this on our side. Of course not. What's that quote? You can judge a man by his enemies. Every one of these demons who have come forward to celebrate the death of Charlie, these are exactly the kind of people that we want to hate us. As Christians, we were assured by Christ a long time ago that the world would hate us the way that it hated him. Charlie always took that hatred with a smile and gratitude. You could see that just as somebody who listened to him, somebody, if you consumed his content, if you ever seen him in a debate, you can see that he knew deep down, as somebody who loved the Lord, that these heinous, evil, demonic, depraved human beings were not his friends, and it's okay that they hated him. In fact, the very fact that they hated him assured him that he was doing the right thing and that he was walking the narrow path. You know what? Here's another thing that really occurred to me over the last 24 hours is that Charlie Kirk was one of the nice ones. He was the nicest out of all of us, out of any person who produces content online on the conservative side. He was the nicest out of all of us. I think about all of his debates. I think about his debates with college students on campus. I think about his appearances on things like the Whatever podcast, sitting across from OnlyFans girls. I think about his, debates at Oxford. Charlie was never the one who would call names and shame people and be rude and belittle them. He would never do that. He was the guy who said to the OnlyFans girls on the Whatever podcast, I hope that you can experience the joy of motherhood. I hope that you can experience how rewarding and how cool it is to grow a family. And he'd, say things like, out of all the things I've done in my life, the coolest thing is being a dad and growing a family with my wife. And I hope you experience that one day. He was the nicest out of all of us. And this is why the the legacy media companies, these publications, they have blood on their hands because for the last 10 years, they have spent time, money, and effort smearing his name and many, many people like him. They've called the likes of Charlie Kirk Nazis. They say that he's literally Hitler. They essentially make him out to be some fascist who wants to incite violence. It's all completely untrue, but they have been peddling the same narrative year after year after year, over thousands of articles, thousands of interviews, and they have convinced an entire population of the United States that he is this evil person. So of course, you're going to have all these people who celebrate his death. This is why I say legacy media has blood on their hands. They are the ones who have incited this type of violence and who have convinced people that it's okay to assassinate somebody in broad daylight because they have a different opinion politically than you do. Charlie was actually moderate in his beliefs. He was. What he believes today, it was considered completely normal and even considered like what a liberal Democrat would have believed 30, 40, 50 years ago, maybe even just 20 years ago. Yes, just 20 years ago. He was quite moderate. You have made Charlie Kirk immortal. Those of you who have hated him, who have wished he was dead, who have celebrated this assassination, you have made him immortal. His name will never be forgotten. He will be known as an American hero. After you die, after your children die, long after you are gone from the face of this earth, his message will continue to be magnified and his name will never be forgotten. We will magnify his message. We will pick up where he left off and he will never ever be forgotten because you have hated him so much and you have celebrated his death so much that his name will be bigger and bigger and he will always be remembered and he will always be honored as an American hero and as an American martyr. And like I said earlier, I think this is a really big tipping point. And if there is any silver lining to this horrific tragedy, which has completely wrecked our country, it is that you now have some A-list celebrities coming forward, professional athletes, a lot of these famous people who are finally feeling like it's time to speak up in support of Charlie Kirk, in support of his message, in support of his love for Christ. People like Chris Pratt, even Josh Duhamel posted something on his Insta. You have these athletes coming forward saying how horrific this was and how this kind of political violence has to end, and pointing out the fact that what is this political violence? We've never seen this kind of political violence happen to the liberals. In fact, the right has been incredibly tolerant. The right has been incredibly patient and kind with you monsters. You didn't like Charlie Kirk? Well, guess what? He was the nice one. And you are not going to like what or who comes next to replace him. You're not. You're not. If you think Charlie Kirk was the bad guy, if you think Charlie was the one who said things that made your tummy hurt, you just wait to see who comes up after him and takes the torch from him. They're already making a list of who's going to be next. I don't even want to show it. I don't even want to give airtime to these people, but they are making a list of who they want to be next. And you can already guess who's on that list. So as more details of his murder come out, we'll discuss it and we'll talk about it. But for now, I think that this is an incredibly heavy, dark time. I haven't felt like this in a long time. And I hear a very similar message from a lot of people. This feels personal to a lot of us. Charlie came up when he was just a teenager and founded TPUSA when he was 18 years old. This is not some type of powerful politician who is running things in the world. This is a guy who just started out loving America and wanting to help young people realize how good the conservative Christian message is. This is the man you choose to assassinate, your 31-year-old husband and father. I hope that you will pray for Erica Kirk and their children, Charlie's parents, his whole family and his close friends, because this is, I think, the most horrific thing I've seen on the internet for a long, long time. And it doesn't negate other horrible things happening. It doesn't negate school shootings. It doesn't negate what's happening in Gaza. No, of course it doesn't negate anything. There is something about this particular assassination that has shifted where we are. I don't know what's next, but all I know is that it's a dark day for America. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, guys, and we'll see you next time.